Okay, hi. All right. Typical Welsh day. This is a little different than yesterday. I just want to say hello. It's about 30 degrees colder. And yeah, I had a really good day. I hope you did too. And it might rain before this episode is over, so just wanted to let you know that here we are. I'd like to continue what I didn't finish yesterday in the short time that I had reserved for this. And most important, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I really do. Because, gosh, the horses really need us to understand. Oh, thank you. And Jess, could I ask you one thing?
Yeah.
Can you find something to fix this chair for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got my good friend Jess is here helping me get organized. We just got back from, well, I can just say an odyssey. This, oh my gosh, look at this jacket. We got back from an odyssey, and the odyssey had to do with loading this, loading this retired, or I don't know what you'd call it. She wasn't really retired. She just couldn't do it anymore. Grand Prix horse that, well, she came from Ireland from my friend Brian and a client of his, and now Jess has her over here in Wales, down from Yorkshire the other day. It was really amazing. Quite an honor to work with a horse so amazingly qualified to work with people. Oh, thanks. See, I need a needle and thread here. This whole thing's actually defunct, but when you have a favorite jacket, what can you do? All right, thank you. All right, thanks, Jess. Okay, so we have, this horse was just so amazing. Today, I trimmed her and I trimmed her pasture mate who's 30. How old is?
30.
No, the other one. How old is?
15.
Okay, so she's 15. And I really honestly can't remember when she retired, but she didn't really retire, she just quit. They retired her because that was the honorable thing to do. She was really well bred and beautiful. She was at her stud farm till she was 4 or 5. I imagine she was trained under saddle by then. I'm speculating because I really haven't done the research on her background, but what a horse. Whew! Today, well, I really can't talk. I could spend hours talking about the last 2 days. It was the most powerful thing I've done in a long time. Horses will move you if you allow it to. If you allow the experience to transport you into something that will change your perspective on what a horse is. If you allow it to happen, it'll really, you don't go back from that. It's like a shunt. You know, it's like a stent. It's like a salmon ladder. When the salmon go up the ladder, they don't come back because it's shut. You don't do that backward thing. You just keep going forward. And that's actually the best way to live as well. I truly believe it. So this horse put me a whole lot farther forward than I was a couple days ago, because she's a Grand Prix mare and she worked really hard. I'd love to meet the person who trained that mare because it's still in there. That foundation, I must say, there were a few things missing. I will give you that. But what was not missing was sureness. That mare knew what to do, and that mare knew what was expected, and she was proud of her ability to please that person. She was trying to please me for 2 days. It almost killed me, actually. She sure did make a mess of that yard I told you about yesterday. Oh my God, you should have seen her plowing up those daffodils. 80-year formal garden, sideways circles, both directions. Good leads, everything. I watched her go through the whole thing. She was trying to get back in my halter. She was trying to get caught. Well, she made a mess of that place in short order. You should have seen it. Feet like this, bulbs, flowers everywhere. I was looking at a friend across this, I don't know what you'd call it. What was that, a ditch?
Ha-ha.
A what?
It's called a ha-ha.
A ha-ha?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like
Means
where the water runs down?
No, you just make an artificial ditch with a wall so that you can have the landscape clear without a fence.
Aha, okay. Well, okay, over here in Wales it's called ha-ha. Or no, that was in Yorkshire, it's called ha-ha. Anyway, it means you don't jump it. So she didn't jump it because it was really formidable, but it does allow you to keep animals and activities, I suppose, separate from this formal garden into this gigantic pasture where she and this older horse that we moved together the last 2 days. It took 2 days to get that horse in the lorry properly. Anyhow, I can tell you I've been changed from that experience and from some other things recently. And it's good to allow yourself to change, because if you don't allow the changes to come to you, then you have to work at it. And that's really actually quite a bit harder, because otherwise you just, I mean, if you don't grow, what is the alternative? Not so funny. Just dead. I don't know. Atrophied, truncated, not interested in forward motion, no vision, just like some old donkey down the same track every day. I'm telling you this because the horse that I met today is a completely different animal that I loaded the last 2 days, who at one point left the whole situation. I was doing something and I came back. As I told you yesterday, I found this stretched out halter would have fit a, I don't know, 21-hand Clydesdale perhaps, one of the Budweiser team, the elder and master members of the team. That halter's finished. That rope is no better either. You can talk all you want about a quick release, not possible. You need a knife or a very, very strong person with a very, very good tool to fix this. I'm mentioning this because I'm really impressed by what happened. I'm also quite tired, so I don't know if I'll finish all the points I want to make today. I have to do some things in the morning quite early, but I'll just review for you who are signing on now and the people who were finishing and continuing from yesterday. There are 4 points for today's session. One is to continue the discussion of the ways that you can galvanize and marshal the interest, the attention, and all of the faculties of a horse to your best end, to your goal, to stand beside you as a full partner and actually fill in where you leave off. You mess up there, right there. Can do it. That's what a good partner does. Whether it's a dog, another person, a child for a parent for another parent, an elder parent. It's what grandparents do for grandchildren. If you're really understanding the team approach to living and the fact that there are no winners and losers, you're just in it together, you're just rolling forward, then you don't worry about keeping score. I don't know what's happened to this global culture, but it's a lot different than I was raised by and about and with, and it's a lot different than what I'm promoting, I can tell you that. There's a real accountability to a horse that will ensure the accountability of that horse back to you. And it's exciting, and I hope I'm speaking loudly enough, because I was told that I didn't speak loudly enough yesterday. Now I'm trying to project a bit. A lot of background. Here is spring in Wales. So the second point I wanted to make has to do with, can't quite remember the order I put these things in. It could be with some of the problems that are, that attend the fact that people kick horses. First of all, there are many problems that result for the horse when he's being kicked, and also trying to figure out what it means in the moment. There's also many other things you can do to get a lot more power than you do from kicking, because generally if you kick from both feet, it'll shut a horse down, tighten the diaphragm, make him want to engage both hips, and buck you right off. So you'd like to avoid that instinct, and also the energy that it requires for him to stifle that instinct. It's really a waste of energy, and a sure signal that the rider doesn't understand the horse. How they move, how they're set up. And all of you out there, beginning right now, I'm going to say it straight out. Overweight, out of shape, first-time horse owners with young horses. You better think about what I'm saying, because you're going to go off, pooh, just like that, if you kick with 2 legs and you haven't got any idea what you're doing. I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want to see you overweight and out of shape with a young horse. I'd rather see you overweight, out of shape, happy if that's how you choose to be, with a nice, gentle horse that is entering a retirement age and can show you everything he's learned about people who make mistakes, so that he takes care of you. I really, 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 really mean that. And I don't care overweight, out of shape. I don't care. I do care if you get hurt. That's what I care. That's really, I mean it. It just breaks my heart. Every time I hear about somebody getting hurt, I think of the horse that misses that person. The horse is on his own out in the marketplace where meat is the deal and where the value of a horse is measured between the price of semen to create him and the price of meat when he's dead. That's what a horse is worth. Nothing more, nothing less. Those three things. What it costs to create him could be nothing, could be $1 million. What it costs to sell him by the pound, depending on the market that day, and what anybody who might happen to cross his path or be impressed by him because of his color, his breed, his reputation, the look that they gave him, their readiness to care for a horse, whether they've ever done it before or not, who knows. But these are the things that the horse lives in, and if I'm not going to talk about it, then I'm up all night wishing I had. That's it. So that's part of it about not kicking a horse, because horses that are unprepared to understand this buck people off, and then they go down this path of no return. They end up on dinner tables. And I'd rather eat a horse that was bred to be eaten than one of these ones that have been medicated all around the world at the shows and the racetracks, and then you got to suffer that. Don't think it doesn't happen. It does. Remember Ikea's meatballs. That's for sure. 1 year ago, full of whatever was in those horses. I know because 200,000 of them are shipped out of the States every year. So they're not going, they're not going to Mexico. They're going to Mexico to leave Mexico. I'm going to talk about the difficult things because horses have a very difficult reality. They are beautiful. They are bred, overbred. They are traded, bought, sold, given away. They are misunderstood every single day of this week. And it keeps me up at night, and I make myself not remember it. I make myself not remember it so that I can do some good in a moment when a horse is right in front of me, because if the horse that's in front of me is not the most important horse there is, I could die. Like yesterday and the day before. There were several things that went on. I'll tell you about this Grand Prix horse. She was missing a foundation that mattered to me. She knew one thing, try to please somebody, but didn't know how. Did not know how. She knew rear up, smash you into the wall, smile and look pretty, never pin her ears, look for a treat. Absolutely incredibly smart, gorgeous, creative mare. Thank you, Brian Byrne. And all the people associated with this horse, so wonderful. My friend Jess has got a real gem here. Anyway, it happens, I know, every day that people step up. I know how hard all of you work to support these horses that are needing a second chance, and this one is sure worth it. And today, she bit me in my hand, picked me up like this, and put my glasses, which I'd been scratching her with, and my hand back toward her stomach, and she scratched her other foot, looked back, and showed me her rib cage, and as though to say, you can keep doing what you were doing. So I did. But I was very impressed at her intelligence. She had many, many other aspects that she revealed of her intelligence. I could go on for hours about my impressions of that horse and her impact on me, and many, many other horses. Most do impact me greatly. I just am usually not so verbal about it, but it's been quite a 72 hours, I can tell you. You have to pick and choose the ones you want to help, because there are so many thousands out there that deserve it, but you just have to wait for when it feels right to do it, and then you give yourself the whole commitment. There's no point in doing less. There's nothing to be gained by doing less than your best. Okay, third point had to do with the best and highest use of a circle. Many, many horses are undone at young ages from being put in too small a circle too many times. They end up with side bones, ring bones, the inability to travel straight, the lack of understanding of how to balance weight, and they really don't understand how to function, because by the time they are, many of them, trained in circles as long yearlings for various events, trained to the test, they're out of a job except breeding. And again, there I point out, you know, you have the horses set up to be assessed, the value of his semen and the price of meat the day he dies. So in between, it depends on who steps up for him to help him, retrain him, recognize his value, notice a look in his eye, look at his body, happen to see his papers, know someone who knows him. Who knows? It's the luck of the draw. But anyway, the thing that we should focus on today has to do with being comfortable with your lack of sureness, because when a horse knows you're sure about your lack of sureness, he's likely to give you the benefit of the doubt when he's distracted and pulling away at a show or jumping out backwards of a van or something else where you just about 6 inches away on your rope from losing him. You can just be sure. You can be sure he understands if you're honest about your lack of sureness. Don't be embarrassed about that. The people who have to be sure about anything, you want to stay far away from. I missaid that. The people who pretend that they are sure about everything, you have to stay somewhat away from, because that's a red flag for me. Being able to say, I don't know, has value. I say it often, actually, but that doesn't mean I have value. It just means I have room to learn. My students are my best teachers. I've said it for a long time, and it's the truth. Some I learn a lot from, some I learn a little from, and some I learn that I don't want to learn anything from. Just like anybody. It's like when you pick a teacher. It's the luck of the draw. You make your best educated guess on who to spend time with, and then you start to see how you feel. And in the end, the whole experience of life is not who you know, although that you can find advertising that actually says this. It's not, what does it say, Jess? It's not what you do, it's who you know. It's not
what you know.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, that's incorrect. It's how does someone make you feel at the end of the day. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter who they know. What matters is in someone's presence, in a horse's presence, in the presence of a dog or a child or a zoo animal or nature, traffic jam. How does the whole experience make you feel? That's going to be about your relationship with you, as a matter of fact. And in the end, that's really what the horse has to go with, because he's got you at the end of that lead rope, and hopefully that lead rope is long enough. Hopefully that lead rope is on a halter that can be put on and off from the right at least half of the time so that he's balanced. And I just want to say that if you're only handling yourself with your right arm, if you're right-handed, you're only handling your horse on the left side of his head and face and body, just understand you're participating in something that will come back in an imbalanced way at some point where you might need really, really good, accountable balance. What's going to happen is something perhaps different, imbalanced. I'll talk for a few minutes now about the horses that are handled only on the left from birth or from young ages. I know that I'm hitting on a lot of topics here, but you never know when your time's up. So you just, when you're speaking and you have something to say, I suggest that you say it. It's good practice. Because then you get sure about talking, you get sure about making mistakes when you're talking, you get sure about who your friends are, you get sure about being unsure. It's how a horse is every time he doesn't get what you're doing. Half of them get prepared to get a good whipping for that, and that's where you have a chance to do something else, which is to be sure that you're unsure in your presentation of the actual facts about what you want a horse to do for you. Give yourself some time, take a breath, rub him on the withers, let him graze. Say, boy, I got to think about this. I just presented this thing to you 7 times. You don't get it. I could beat the heck out of you because you don't get it. Or I could really take a look at myself and realize I haven't got a clue how to present what I want. And that is where somebody who's honest starts to become a good trainer. If you don't know how to get what you want, it's because you don't know how to get what you want. That doesn't mean he's wrong for not understanding every single thing that you don't want and eliminating 1 million infinite things until he has identified what you want. You won't even have the lasting power to present everything you don't want for him to figure out what you do want. You want to set a horse up to succeed? Then do it. It's a really, really hard thing to come to terms with. But correcting horses for what they don't understand means you haven't corrected it in a way that he understands. That means you look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I not getting that this horse needs me to understand about his equilibrium, his nature, his inability to be straight when I need him to be, if he's only been handled on the left, and that right hip is hanging back, and that left shoulder is heavy. Every time I take out slack out of the rein, he butts me in the head with his head. He's waiting for my right elbow in his neck. He's waiting for my right hip in his shoulder. He's waiting for my chiffney bit or my chain to jack him in the nose. You're not training a horse to do anything about straightness when you punish him for not understanding only left-sided work on the ground. Think about it. What if no one ever taught you how to make a right turn in the car, in the lawnmower, on a skateboard, in your roller skates, with your bicycle? What if your whole life until you're in high school, really, what if your whole life until 15 years old, all you ever had to do was look left? Well, you'd have a bodywork bill and a chiropractor bill and you'd have a lot of bills that had to do with your disability, and you'd probably do whatever it took to try to figure out how to get straight at some point. But you put the bottom half of yourself on the top half of these things that are bent left with that pelvis offset and that left heavy shoulder, the whole operation running off the right diagonal. And this horse, looking for a handout, waiting for a punch in the nose because he's too close after you reward him for being there. This is 99% of horses that have been turned into pets and then punished for being that. So, I'm just reflecting. I'm not upset with any particular people. I'm not upset with anything except the fact that the horse doesn't have a loud enough mouthpiece. They get worth too much money, too young, before their knees are even closed. That's like running a baby before his head is shut. You know how the babies have this big dent here? That's like putting him in a triathlon training before he stopped crapping in his pants and crying for his mother, and you're mad because he's not already qualified for the Junior Olympics. That colt has the same damn pressure, and he can't talk about it except kick you in the head. And then that one goes by the wayside, and probably the other ones see him go, and they learn not to kick him in the head, or somebody who cares about those colts teaches them not to kick him in the head. But there's a whole lot of horses that really could plow a field, do a job, carry a cart, carry a grandmother, carry kids. I'll get back to that beautiful painting I saw down in the under the arch in St. Louis. There's a thing called the Gateway to the West. It's kind of underneath down at the level of the river in St. Louis. I don't know if they still have it, but I saw a picture there in the 70s. It changed my life about horses. Changed it. Fact. This is this old woman. She had a little baby on her, right in her lap, maybe two. She had an infant strapped to her back, a little papoose and a backpack. She had her legs crossed over the bars that come up over her little horse, and that horse couldn't have been more than 3. I mean, if you know horses, you know a horse is 3. Just look at it. Had the whole family belongings on this travois out the back, and this little thing was going with no bit. Just little leather string over the head back to her. Not even, she didn't even hold it. She had the baby here. She was going down across the river. You could just see. It was a huge mural, you know. It was one of those daguerreotypes that had been blown up to life size. Changed my life. That picture changed my life because what the American Indians did with horses is what we ought to be doing today. You read them, you put the time in, you think about them, you bring them into your life. You want a partnership? Don't talk about it, live it. You can't bullshit a horse. You can't. Doesn't work that way. So be careful. Just be careful. I shouldn't be shaking my finger at anybody. I should shake my finger at myself because I'm the worst. Should have seen me yesterday. What did I do? I stood there just wondering. At the end of a long, long day, the day before yesterday, I thought, my God, I hope she gets on tomorrow. I wasn't sure she would. I gave it all I had. After 6.5 hours, I was finished. She was starting to get cranky, and I saw it in her eyes. She got a dark eye on her, and I thought, okay, done. Don't push her there. You know what I mean by a dark eye? Any of you know what I mean by a dark eye? A dark eye, you don't mess around. By the time you've pushed a horse to the point where there's no more light in their eye, there's no more interest in you, I'm not talking about pinning their ears, rearing up, kicking you, stuff like that. I'm talking about where you are turned off. Done. Discussion over. That does not mean they're going to have a good night's sleep and you give them grain tomorrow and they'll like you then. If it's over the way it can be over with people. With dogs and people, children and parents, all of it. And if it's over, it's over. And I saw myself getting close to that point, not because I did anything particularly abrupt or egregious, or did I transgress her. I kept, my deal was steady, but she was getting tired. And I was starting to capitulate to the perception that I was running out of time. Okay, I'm a long way from home. I come to help a friend. There's this, the clock's ticking on the trailer and the two people who are running the trailer, and you can do the math. What are we going to do? Spend $5,000 to trailer a horse 3 hours? I mean, are you kidding? Can I do better than that? I can do what I can do. I can't make a horse do something a horse isn't ready to do. Unless I want to leave it worse for the next person. And that's not what I'm going to do. I want to be able to leave that mare so somebody can just walk up into a trailer. She walks up in there and says, come on, hurry up, get up in there, I'm ready. Tie me up here. And in the end, that's what she did with me. But it took an extra day. So I put myself under a lot of pressure. That horse really affected me a lot. Today, she picked me up by the hand and my glasses, and like I told you in the earlier part here, she started to scratch her foot on the ground and basically say, you can just, come here, come over here. I itch here, this muscle hurts, and she was moving all over the place, talking as much as she could. I wish the person who raised and trained this horse would show up right now, and if they want that horse, I wish they would come and see it. That horse is looking for that person. I swear it. In my life, I've returned 3 or 4 horses. I've had the good fortune to find horses that had paperwork and whatnot that I could actually find, or owners that were, bereft, heartbroken, had to give up, divorce, bankruptcy, I don't know what all. But I have had the good luck to experience what it means to a horse and a person to be reunited after, I think that horse Shadrach was a Tennessee walker that came back to his owner after 14 years. I found him in, was it 1979? So he was from 1964. And we found an owner. A friend of mine and I found an owner for him, Shadrach. Oh, what a story. What an experience to witness that. Anyway, this mare would do well to connect with the first owner that she had, the first, wherever the stud was. I would just hope that person can show up and at least let her know that all her efforts to find that person could be successful. People don't understand that horses make connections, I think, sometimes. All right, so I'm drifting. I don't mind it. That's what horses do. That's what I'm doing right now. And on the 4th topic, I'm trying to think of what it was. It had to do, yes, with handling horses on the right. So we got 4 main pieces here, which is what do you do when the horses are distracted at shows and various other situations? You be a better distraction. Okay, one line. Be a better distraction. And have that distraction lead to something constructive that is based on your understanding of how those horses balance and rebalance from back to front, from left to right. I spoke about this yesterday. I've been talking about it for several months. I don't expect everybody to go back through all those tapes, but if you have an interest, it's all in there. So you'd be a better distraction. Don't do anything at home that you wouldn't do in public. The horse will tell on you. Anyway, just be nice. Be nice to horses. And if you can't be nice, be honest. Give that lead rope to someone else who can get the point across so that the feet go in the right speed, at the right direction, at the right time, for the right reason, And that horse will find a spot within itself and within you and say thank you. That's possible. The highest levels of training. It's an actual fact. That's my advice. I'm nobody's boss. I'm just mentioning it because, boy, when you see evidence of this, it's the most moving thing you can believe. I mean, I can remember seeing Ray Hunt do some things that brought me to tears. Flat to tears. And Bill, too. And Buck. And some other people. But don't see it much anymore. I miss it. Of course, I'm not everywhere either. I mean, I'm kind of in my own world by now. But what I will say, it's anybody's option. Anybody's option to treat mastery of something in a way that will honor the art of the experience and to be good at anything. To be good at anything, one must treat it as an art. Now, we talk about the mechanics and the physics, the technique that is behind a lot of this, what people call emotional gibberish. Well, if you have not got emotions available to you when you're training horses, and I mean the spectrum of emotions, not just looking at the clock, pissed off, worried about your bills, did the horse make you look embarrassed, or however you're feeling on the downside. I'm talking about the art of allowing yourself to let a horse expand your appreciation of the fact that you live. A horse can end your life in a second. And many of them let people live that a person might not let that person live for what they do. But a horse has a heart and a soul and a conscience and a vision. And I am not kidding. A lot of people think that I'm just talking over here. A lot of people think that I'm just bat. No. No. If I get the chance, I'll put these videos out. Literally by now I have many hours of them. I don't know how many times I said many, but thousands of hours of stuff that if I get the chance to edit properly, you're going to see a side of a horse that will blow your mind all the way. The problem with our minds, our human minds, is that we are so incapable of retaining memory and vision because we are easily distracted. Worse than a horse. We are distracted far more than a horse will ever be distracted. So to say that a horse gets distracted at a show, and what do I do to get his attention back? Get your own attention. Get in your own mind. Put your phone down. Turn that phone off. Seriously. You're with a horse, focus on that animal. Where are his feet? In what sequence? At what speed? Is he breathing? Do his teeth align properly? Have you got a bit jammed up into a wolf tooth? Has he just tipped over in someone else's trailer? Do you know him? Are you willing to pull him from a class because you know his lame? These are things, I'm sorry, but to work with me, to work with my my time and my effort to help, I really have to know that you love a horse for who he is, not who he can make you be. Because he might make you somebody you don't know or don't want to be if you're not careful. And I mean this with all my heart because I've seen many people try to dominate a horse and it will work right until it doesn't. And it might not be you that horse refuses to be dominated by. It might be somebody's 9-year-old who's been given a stick or a whip and told, show him who's boss, honey. You don't want to see that, do you? That horse might have no choice but to take that kid out, just like some punk on some street corner who's just had it and does something to some young child because there's nobody left that will fall down. And what I'm talking about, I know, because I worked at the racetracks when I was 20. And I went to I went to the county fairs, and I saw what happened to horses and happened to people, and come down into New Hampshire and Vermont from Canada to those big horse pulls. I see what people need horses to do to make them feel real and significant, and to prop them up because they haven't done their personal work. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more because it's really important to get the help you need before you snap on an animal. What I mean by that is that the horses that are getting distracted at shows and that are annoying teenagers and that are, that people are putting their cigarettes out on their horse and they're tightening the bits and they're running into, they're saying, oh, I don't want him to get his tongue over the bit, so I'll just set that bit right back on his molars and I'll pull all my might and hope I win. This is not okay. This is not okay. I have to talk about this. I have to talk about this because I can't watch it too much longer without talking about it and trying to find a few key people who are understanding what I'm talking about and ready to help their students change. This is my goal. This is my goal. And, in the daytime, I have my day job. I load a horse, I trim a horse, trimmed a couple horses. Hey, we didn't trim Kathy's horse's back feet. I can do it in the morning. Do we have time?
Yeah, I got time.
See, forgot 2 feet today. Oh no. Do we really have time?
We'll make time.
Okay, you just get up early. Anyway, yeah, I just forgot 2 feet today. But these things matter a lot to me. And so when you know your purpose and you know where your journey is at the moment, where it started, where it is now, and where you'd like it to go, that's a huge amount of information to be working with. Huge amount of information to be working with. And I want to say that the horses understand it. And many people will either laugh or take me off their Facebook. This happens sometimes. I don't worry about it. You can't please everybody. But in the end, at 2 in the morning, when it's you and a horse, if you can figure out exactly where you need those feet, that's all that horse needs you to know. Just don't forget that. Even if you haven't got the right bit, you haven't got the right halter, you haven't got the right light, you haven't got the right footing, if you understand where you need the feet to be in order for you to be safe and the horse to get where you need to put him or not put him anywhere, just to be still, just don't think about how many pounds, how much force you have to put into the head and neck. Stop thinking in terms of body blocking him, getting more equipment to control him through pain so that you can make him submit. You'll make him submit right until you don't. I've had people call me that were running all kinds of things through the mouths of mules, and those horses were still going to the end of the county at top speed, blood streaming down their necks and chests. Doesn't matter. A horse can block pain just like a person can. So what we really need to think about is how can we bring the joy back to the world of competition so that people can start having fun on a fair playing field? How can we start looking at horses in the way that will flatter them, that will allow time in the competition schedule for real repair, for real rehabilitation, just as you would yourself if you're an athlete? What do you think the NFL and the NBA do? You think they run these guys crippled? Yeah, until they don't. Until they realize that a $5 million player is going to cost them $10 million because he can't show up next season, so they give him 6 months off and he gets his rehab and he gets his time. I do it to a horse too. Doesn't matter. It's just the bigger picture. We've become an instant gratification society. I mean, look, if everybody had to grow their own lettuce and they got hungry, you think you're going to go out there and whip those little lettuce leaves because it's not a full salad? Good luck. You starve right there. You have to make time for things to happen in a normal way. I had the unfortunate experience 2 years ago of going with my friend to Oakland to watch the skating class. My goodness gracious. I saw more children between the ages of 4 and 7 in tears because they weren't ready for pre-Olympic skating level achievements. I was absolutely stunned. I had to go sit in the car. Couldn't stand it. Where we have the audacity to pressure someone else to be what we need them to be without examining our own limits, and the reason that we pressure people for reasons of our own, or horses or dogs or whatever. Dog shows, same thing. I'm just saying, probably preaching to the converted, preaching to the choir here, but when you get a horse in a round pen and you're running a flight animal against a solid wall and you're saying, okay, good boy, when he's counterbent and he's sagging his ribs and his hips and his shoulder to you with his nose on the outside of the arena looking away from you, and you're chasing his body with a whip and you're holding a tight line because you've chased him into a pen at the end of a tight rope without realizing what you're doing, and you're going to think you've trained a horse and get up there and left will mean right and right will mean left. You're going to be going 100 miles an hour. You want pull to mean stop, and it's going to mean go like the wind. These are things that need to be taken into account early on. If you're going to want to ride that fast, I suggest you go in a steeplechase event and get good at staying on and win that thing. The pull means go, get in the right event. There are events like that, you know. Get out there and ride your brains out, because that's a good place to do it. But if you think you're going to just go on a trail ride or one of these, you know, club rides where people are going to go poker and, you know, have little overnight campouts and the barbecue and this and that, and, you know, you take your six-pack and your saddlebags and you have a few cocktails when you get there, and your horse is still standing there at 2 in the morning with a saddle tight and he hasn't been fed or had water, you better think about it. It's happening all over America right now. So I'm bringing these painful things up because a horse that's uncomfortable will only be able to take it for so long. And a lot of nice people, a lot of really wonderful people with good intentions, don't know enough about horses, don't know how to get themselves trained. So we really have to start to think about what these horses need us to know, which is, where do you want the feet? What are the signs of discomfort? How do we keep a horse straight? Here's your one answer. You get a horse clear about left and right, and straight is the absence of both. Straight should weigh nothing at top speed. And when the front end is clear about left and right, and the hips are clear about left and right, and you are able to take a horse reaching equally in both directions, left and right, in both directions with both ends reaching equally, that means the outside front leg is coming to the inside the same degree that the inside hind leg is reaching to the outside on a circle of any diameter. Could be a 50-mile circle, it could be a 20-meter circle. When those things are clear with your leg aids, your line of sight, your balance, your release of your outside rein, the opening of your inside rein, or if you're riding in one hand, your ability to connect to the feet through the release of that rein down the shoulder groove instead of the yanking of that head up in the air. When you have the availability of that body underneath you, you will know a feeling that is undescribable. And it's pretty cool. So I'm going to encourage anybody who is really looking for a superior experience to dig deep, not gloss over the details, not look at the clock, not take phone calls while you're training. Just get into it. Get into it at a real level. And I know I sound emphatic, but look, you know, this weekend, these last 2 days, I don't know if it was a weekend or what, but I lose track of time sometimes, like I did this week. I think it's a weekday. But last 2 days, I had one goal. Get this horse not safely from point A to point B. That was not the goal. The goal was to set the horse up so that anybody could load her. She's 15. She did not know how to walk up a ramp. She did not know how to be tied. She did not know how to back up. She did not know how to be petted without hitting you in the head with her entire neck. This mare is 16.3, and what do you think she weighs? 1250? 1,300 pounds? She'll take you out in a shot. Her idea of affection is to snap your neck like a twig. Whack! Like that. See that, Pen? That's your neck. That's her idea of affection. Good luck. That's what got retrained in 6.5 hours at the end of the ramp, not getting in the trailer. She loaded on the first shot twice. She leapt from the bottom of the ramp in the trailer and damn near ended my life. And she exited just as fast. That's not the kind of loading I want. That's the kind of loading she has been told was okay for 15 years. I don't want that. Leap in, leap out. You should see her go backwards. She can go out of there in lightning speed. Lightning speed, dangerously. Took 6.5 hours to put a foundation on her that should have been there at 18 months. It took overnight for her to think about it. And the next day, she did it. But these things take time. And they shouldn't be rushed. Lessons need to be short. There are some things I wanted to mention, and it might sound like I'm in a bad mood. I'm not. It's just, you just never know when you're gonna say something again or have it on your mind in the same way. And this mare really affected me, and that's really where all my energy and my emphatic emotion is coming from right now, is because they were going to shoot this mare. They were going to put a needle in her, get some insurance. And they didn't want to, but she was not possible to sell in her condition. So I would have supported the decision. What they were going to do. But my friend Jess spoke up for the mare. I said I'd take her, but I had no clue what I would do. My friend Jess took the mare. She's a really nice mare. But these horses are casualties because the hurry to get them in the show ring and get the owners recognized and get the semen into these mares and get these mares to produce winning stock. I mean, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know what we are doing. I know what I'm doing, but all I know is that the racing industry is dumping their horses in the coal, the abandoned coal mines in Kentucky and in the Virginias. I know that. I know that the Arabs are being abandoned in the deserts. I know that these animals are looked at as a commodity, and it's not for me to say that's wrong, but it is for me to say that if you take the time to look at them for really what they are, your life will change, your world will expand, your horizons will be endless, and the depth of what you actually know about these creatures and why they were created and what they represent to you as a human being, to anyone else in need. Don't forget, horses built the world. Don't forget, the world as we know it. The bridges, the timber, the milk, the ice, the fields that were plowed, the stones that were pulled out to make the fields, the trees that were cut down, the lumber that was hauled back and forth from mills to make houses, the slate that was, every damn thing we can look at was created by these animals. You know, I mean, this is why you had this book that Anna Sewell wrote, Black Beauty, in the 1820s, I believe. I think she started it earlier than that. But anyway, when I was 8, I wrote her a letter. Thanked her for her book. I didn't realize it had been written 100 years ago. It's what I used to do, is go to the library and read these books and then write to these people who meant something to me. I did it for a long time. I did get letters back from Marguerite Henry, and I did get letters back from C.W. Anderson. When I was young, I asked them to help me train my horse, who was already probably quite well trained, but I didn't know how to ride, so I thought he wasn't well trained. That's a common mistake people make. Anyhow, I got some very touching letters that I still have from people who were writing books about horses in the 50s. And for those of you who know that something is deeply wrong in your relationship with a horse, just trust that knowledge and start looking to yourself, looking outside yourself. Just remember, it's between you and the horse. No one can fix that horse and hand the lead rope back. It won't work like that. It'd be like you have a problem in your marriage. You just loan your spouse out to the neighbor and say, send her back when she's better. You know, you loan your husband out. You say, when you got him straightened out, tell him I want him to come home. That isn't how it works. And many people in the horse training business understand this. If you're not keeping the owner or the rider aware of the process that you're going through with that animal to educate them about where you want the feet, in what speed, in what sequence, in what direction, and when. If you're not educating the person who's going to be sitting up there expecting that your investment is going to give them an experience that matches the experience that you have created for yourself. This is where horse trainers miss it, because it's very hard to deal with many of the people, a lot easier to deal with the animals. But there's no reason ever to get disappointed in another human being for anything if you don't have an expectation. You know, disappointment in people comes from having expectations. And where do you get the right to have that? The one to look at and have expectations of, you see in the mirror every morning if you have a mirror, and if you don't have a mirror, the person who opens your eyes and the person who puts on your shoes is the one to expect something from, no one else, in my opinion, because you will get disappointed unless you have a very, very clear line of communication with somebody about what they can deliver, when they can deliver it, and what are going to be the signals between the two of you to inform the other person in time so that there's no disappointment or hard feelings. You know, communication is an art. And if you're good at communicating with people, you're very likely to be good at communicating with horses. But if you have retreated into the worlds of dogs and horses because you don't like people, you're not really going to help those animals. You really won't, unless you own them all. Because to train horses for people you don't like doesn't help that animal. I just want to say that. So let's talk now about the impact of right-sided tacking, untacking, mounting, dismounting, handling on the right side. What is that going to do for a horse that's been handled on the left all his life? It's going to, in the first place, disturb him because his body will be shorter on the left and longer on the right, and so you're going to ask him to turn the other way for the first time and to accept you in that eye for the first time. It's going to be difficult. It is difficult because it feels funny. Go brush your teeth tonight with the other hand. You'll see where that toothpaste goes. That toothpaste is going to go right up the side of your face if you're out brushing with the wrong hand. Now, if you have an electric toothbrush, you're cheating. Try signing a check. Okay, sign your next check with your other hand. That would be a good one. Go to a fancy dinner. Toast with your champagne or your wine, and then try to keep that liquid in your mouth and not pouring down the front of your shirt. You'll see, if you do that a time or two, just what it's like for a horse to suddenly be asked to function in the other way. Now, why would we do it? Well, we're going to do it because these horses are no longer needed as conveyors for military personnel. I mean, there was a time when in the military you had people were right-handed people were serving in tremendous cavalries all over the world, and right-handed guy is going to have his sword on the left. He's going to pick it out and he's going to get you. Okay, if you're in the wrong team or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, he's just going to stick it right there. And then, well, anyway, that's why people got on the left, because if your sword is on the left and you're going to step up on the left side, you don't have to get your leg and your sword over the horse. Okay, it's just pretty simple. So at the time when, for the convenience of the right-handed majority, horses and horse equipment were trained and tacked and set up and prepared for service on the left side. We are long, 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 long down the road from that. Come on. You know, I saw pictures of horses going up against tanks for the last time, I think, in World War II. By Korea, they were no longer bothering with horses and tanks. That was finished. But in World War I, you saw a lot of horses and a lot of tanks and a lot of guns and a lot of mixing of the technology, and the passions of man against man were still very, very high and running high, and still do run high. But when the horses are taking people into war against tanks and airplanes, that's really quite something. That was a very well documented and very upsetting thing to witness. I have many hours spent in trying to understand from the horse's point of view why they were serving people to the last breath. And that's what horses are here for, is to serve us, and they have made that very clear from the beginning. So I just want to say, this is an aside now, because many horses today don't really understand their jobs the way they did then. And when they died for people, they probably understood at some point that they gave their last breath and last effort for those people. And there was a lot of sadness exchanged. I've seen many poignant photographs and drawings of men with their dying horses in the ditches. Horses they rode, horses that were part of the pulling the wagons of supplies and so on. But you think about today what it takes to have a horse become a predator because his job is misunderstood and he's punished for not understanding what's expected. It's really a long way from a horse dying willingly in service to humanity to him turning around and attacking somebody in a stall because the treatment is just patently unfair. I mean, can you imagine? What's another flight animal? How about a rabbit? Imagine having a rabbit turn around and just go up to your back door and bite you in the knee when you answer the door. I mean, to turn a flight animal into a predator is a huge corruption of nature. And what I really am going to encourage people to think about is how to give the horse the benefit of the doubt, how to give yourself the benefit of the doubt as someone who is trying and struggling to do right in your day job. If your day job is being a trainer and helping other people learn, or helping other people compete or succeed at racing or breeding, be humble before your horse, I would recommend. Be humble before your horse. And if your way of dealing with horses every day is to get them to submit with either a needle or a chain or a whip or a loud voice, just remember, the words of Ray Hunt and Buck Brannaman couldn't be more appropriate, is that some people just haven't been hurt enough to know that this is not the best way. You can have all the drugs and all the techniques and tactics you want. There will be some horse or something that distracts you, some telephone call. Just because you have adopted that way to handle horses does not mean you deserve to die. You've got a wife or a husband or children or people who care about you. It's not about keeping score between equines and humans. It's about see it for what it really is. I don't get happy when I see mean people get hurt by horses. I don't get happy at all by that. Nobody deserves to get hurt by a horse. Nobody. If you're doing the best you can and you have limited knowledge, and you're doing the best you can to survive your day job, and you're beating up horses to get through the day so you can feed your children, you can give your wife a birthday present or a new car that she needs, or you can fix your teeth or something, whatever it is. I don't hold that against anybody. It's just that there's only so much time to learn the things that a horse needs you to know. And it has to start with the idea that he has two eyes that need to be free to see. He has a forehand that you, as his rider or handler, are going to want available. And that means you got to figure out how to move the weight to the back and leave him with his dignity. And part of that starts with really treating him as livestock, not trying to turn a colt into a pet and then punish him for being all over the top of you because you've rewarded him with hand-fed treats for crowding your space that you then regret having yielded to him, offered to him, actually paid him to be there. Here's a treat, honey. Bam! Get out of here. This is not fair. The flight animal doesn't understand that. They really don't. So the things that we need to start thinking about, I would say, we as horse lovers, we as trainers, we as riding school instructors, we as breeders, competitors, people who seriously want the horse industry to not have to hold its head in shame behind the scenes at things that happen in the dark recesses of places where the truth is not revealed, when everybody knows where those places are, who's involved in that. I do too. It doesn't need to be mentioned. But what does need to be said is that there is a very, very easy, straightforward solution to all of the so-called mysteries and magic and horse whispering BS, which is really just about understanding the straightforward basics of what a horse needs you to know. And that is, where do you want his feet, in what sequence, at what speed, and when. It's really, really simple. And it does take time. It does take an old horse to teach a young and innocent green rider how to get confidence. And it takes an experienced trainer who has compassion and who has time and patience to train correctly to teach green horses how to have confidence to continue their try and to do well. So these are things that matter a lot to me. I'm sorry to have kind of a heavy tone to the delivery tonight, but I gotta tell you, Wales is a heavy place. You know, there's more to it than that, but the significance of the experience that people have with horses should not be underestimated. That's why there are so many movies and books about horses. There's so many people writing blogs about horses, is because, you know, aside from the gifts that we are to each other, it's probably God's greatest gift to humanity. Thank you for your time.